Greetings! In this tutorial we're going to look at real-time blurring of audio. What's blur? In an earlier tutorial, there's a link in the video description, I showed you how to go from a sample like this to something like this using Edison. Ultimately, on the way to making a pad sample like this. So, a question we get asked in Loop Talk is it possible to blur sounds, like in Edison, but do it in real time? The answer is yes. Well, I hope it's yes, otherwise this tutorial is going to end quite badly. Let's recap by looking at how the Edison blur works. In the original tutorial, we took this sample and put it in Edison. Then we used the blur tool with the defaults to blur the sample. Excellent. Now I've read the manual, so I know the Edison's blur is based on a convolution algorithm. That is, an impulse file is multiplied across the sample. I won't go into too much detail here, but with the cogs slowly turning in my head, I realise that we do have a real-time convolution effect in FL Studio. That's Fruity Convolver. Fruity Convolver is marketed as a convolution reverb plugin. But really, it's only a reverb because of the impulse response we load into it. Listening to the default impulse, it sounds like an echo from a large space. But what if we could use the convolution impulse used in Edison to blur samples in real time? Well, we can. Okay, that sounds great, but how do we get our hands on the impulse response from Edison? We're going to have to steal it. Fortunately, Fruity Convolver is designed to steal impulse responses from other plugins. I'll leave a link in the description for that too. I'll set Edison to record on input and then click this lightning icon to initiate an excitation spike. Okay. Now I want this impulse spike to have roughly equal silence before and after it. So I'll make a selection and hit the insert key on my keyboard to add some silence at the beginning. So let's have a look at this magical spike we just recorded. As you can see, it's a single sample at 100%, and that's it. Normally, you would play that click through other plugins or in a room through a speaker and record the result to steal the impulse response. That is, record the resulting sound, then put that in Fruity Convolver. Now all we need to do here is blur that click. Select Blur, accept the defaults, and there it is. Fruity Convolver's impulse response from the default blur function. I'll normalize it first to make it louder. Let's listen. So, that's basically stereo hiss fading in and out. Interestingly, you may notice the shape of the volume matches the curve on the Edison blur tool. So perhaps now you better understand what that feature does. Let's put this impulse response back to the original level. I'll select just the region relating to the impulse response and drop it into Fruity Convolver. And that's it. We've successfully stolen Edison's default blur function. Let's confirm. I'll turn down the dry so we hear only the blur. And for the lazy, I've included the impulse response as a link in the video info as well. Now that you've seen how that worked, I'll show you an easier way to achieve the same thing using a stereo white noise sample. I'll just drop it on Fruity Convolver. There's also a link to the white noise sample in the video description. Let's listen. Cool, sort of like a sample and hold. Once you have this noise sample in Fruity Convolver, you can use the amplitude envelope to make shapes, like you saw in the Edison Blur tool. For example, cool. Let's experiment a little. Don't forget that Fruity Convolver also has an EQ tool and other envelopes. And with that, I'll leave you to try your own experiments with noise samples in Fruity Convolver.